One, two, three. Expelliarmus!
I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending that I don't exist.
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
Where have you been?
You shall not harm Harry Potter!
50 points and it goes to her head.
I strongly recommend caution.
Scared, Potter.
You wish. I didn't know you could read.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Retold, a Harry Potter podcast. And we're back for season 2. Yay! We took a week off because Memorial Day and because I wanted to. And now we are back for book 2, season 2, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Super hype about this one, partially because I don't have to worry about any more name changing stuff because, you know, book 1 in many other places is called, actually everywhere else is called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and not Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I got made fun of some by my international audience for calling it Sorcerer's Stone.
Listen, they had no reason to think that Americans couldn't handle it. We ate Full Metal Alchemist up.
We did.
Like, it's not, I don't know.
But it's funny.
Americans don't know about either. So you can just call it whatever you want.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because every time I was like, I think it's a great decision. Sorcerer does sound cooler. But anyway, yeah, I'm also really excited because we've got a whole slew of awesome guests lined up. I had an incredible time with season 1, recording episodes with a bunch of my friends and some new people. And for season 2, I've got a bunch of my friends coming back, but we also have like legitimate Harry Potter podcasters and a professional podcaster. We have a comedian coming on. We have Harry Potter influencers. It's going to be a really cool season as we go through Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But before we get to any of those guests, the most important guest I'll ever have on. You already heard her voice just for a little bit, but I have my wife.
It's me.
It's you, my most special friend.
Thank you for having me. I told him that it had to be the first chapters because I'm not rereading the whole book. I don't have time. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But everybody, this is my wife, Bailey.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's wonderful. She lets me love her.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And I'm so happy to have her on. This is fantastic. What you may not know is that, well, Barry, there's no way we could know, is that we actually recorded this episode already. And there were some issues with the recording and, honestly, issues with how I did the episode. I was like, I don't like that. I can do it better. And so naturally,
he still has a crush on me. He was nervous.
I was going to make the joke of like, I called upon my wife to be like, hey, can you fix my problem and do this again with me? There's an episode of Friends where Chandler, I'll try not to spoil it, but Chandler is in a relationship with a particular woman and they fall on hard times because he loses his job. And he's like, baby, don't you worry. I'm going to get us through this, even if it means you working twice as hard. That's how I feel about this episode. But yeah, so I don't know why I'm clapping. That's going to ruin the audio. But we are back now for season 2.
Thinking about Friends. That's why.
Yeah, we did that at our wedding.
We did.
On the way out. It was a really cool wedding. You guys should have been there. Anyway, let's get started now with book 2, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Ooh. But before we get on to that, wife, my love of my life, let's get started with your fandom ID. So your fandom ID is what house you are in, what Hogwarts house you're in. What is your favorite book? I guess of the books you've read, because she hasn't read all of them yet, guys.
Listen, I've read the first 4.
You know, we're going to tell the story of how we got engaged. But it's really funny when people, and the audience has already heard me say before, and if you're new, I proposed to her in Diagon Alley in the Wizarding World. And when I tell people that, they always say, "Oh my gosh, is she a huge Harry Potter fan?" And I say, "I am." And she wanted to get married.
That's right. I did.
So we met in the middle.
Yep.
Oh, our dog is barking.
Yeah.
Kogamius, stop that. Kogamius, stop that. Get the man's voice on. I don't know where we were. Anyway, you're a Phantom ID.
I'm a Ravenclaw. Through and through.
Through and through.
I can't roll my R's. Don't oppress me like that.
You also can't whistle.
Listen, I used to be able to whistle. When I was a kid, I could.
And then the incident happened.
Yeah, the incident being I got braces. And I could whistle while I had braces. But when I got them taken off, the ability was taken with it. And it was very sad.
So if we put metal over your teeth, we'd be able to whistle?
I don't really,
It might be worth it.
I don't think it would be.
So you're a Ravenclaw.
Yes.
You're a smarty pants. She's an English teacher. This fits.
Yeah. Checks out. Yep.
And your favorite book far?
My favorite book so far was the third one.
And you're in the middle of book 5 right now, aren't you?
I started it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably need to start over from the beginning when I pick it up again, though, because it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I'll probably. You're going to hate this, but I'll probably just wait until you have gone over and reviewed the
That's
other
gonna be
books.
so long.
I know. But listen, I am too busy with my brain. I cannot do it.
That's crazy.
I cannot do it soon.
Okay.
But,
so book 3, favorite.
Yeah. Book 3 is my favorite. And then the movie, I think you remember which one better than I do, of which one I've said was my favorite.
You said that movie 5 was your favorite.
Yeah, I think so. I just like the vibes.
Mm-hmm. But you also like movie 4 a good bit, just because it's the one I play the most.
Yeah, that one to me has more nostalgia to it than the earlier ones.
Because of
how often you played it.
It's like you didn't watch these movies as a kid, but you have nostalgia simply because it's like when we first started dating.
Yeah.
That's the one I would play the most.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was one time I was like, "Can we watch a Harry Potter movie?" And you're like, "Yeah, but let's not do the 4th one."
Yeah.
We play it every time.
Yep.
And how did you get into Harry Potter?
Oh, you.
That's the best reason I've heard so far. That's the best way to get into Harry Potter I've heard so far.
Yeah. No, it's definitely you. I was never against it. I wasn't like forbidden from getting into it when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. My parents are Baptist, but not like that. No, the reason why, so I have an older brother, and he was very, very obsessive over anything that they would let him get into when he was a kid. And there wasn't anything uniquely bad about Harry Potter that they didn't want him to get obsessed with it. But they were just tired, man. They were tired of the birthday parties. They were tired of like...
We don't need a wizard party.
Yeah. No, because he already was super into Star Wars. He was super into Spider-Man.
And
dinosaurs, tractors. Yeah. They were just tired of it. Yeah. Which I think is a little silly of them, honestly, because of all of those things, Harry Potter is the one that actually includes the most reading. Mm. And so it probably would have been better for him.
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyways.
But I got you into Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably a good, I guess, spot to tell how I proposed to you.
Go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to do this. We didn't do it the first time we recorded it, but the first time we recorded it was a pretty short episode. Like we barely cracked an hour, which is fine, but just to add a little more content to the episode. Yeah, so like we've already said, I proposed in Harry Potter world, but do you want me to tell most of the story? Do you want to start it off? Or?
Well, I mean, you got to start it off at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So
it was in like we had a trip planned to go to Universal,
and it was the first trip that we were taking like without parents.
Yeah, it was just going to be us two the first day, and then a bunch of our friends were going to show up.
Yeah.
The next day, and Bailey knew that was happening.
Uh-huh.
What she didn't know, though, is that I had also invited my mom, and my dad wasn't able to make it, but I invited my mom and her parents, and they were all going to be there too for the proposal.
And they were like following us down, and I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm. But we drove down, And we got up super early in the morning at 2 a.m. because I wanted to be there when the park opened.
Also, just some context. The reason why all this happened, and I wasn't suspicious that he was going to propose during this trip, because I already knew he'd bought the ring. Like, I knew it was coming. But
You knew I'd already bought the ring?
Yeah.
I know. Well, I know we talked about it. I just didn't know if you knew that I had bought it yet.
You pretty much told me. But so there were kind of like 3 reasons. First of all, I didn't think that you would just blatantly lie to me. Because you just said that it wasn't happening. And I was like, he's not a liar. He's a playful talker. He would like be cryptic, or he would like say it in a way that leaves a loophole. But no, you just lied. The second thing was you said you backed up your lie by saying that someone who I knew like would not be on the trip was involved in your proposal plan. And so that was the second thing. But you know what really sold it was my dad, like a day or 2 before we were set to leave. My dad was like, you know, Hurricane Ian is going to be hitting, like, and it's going to be pretty bad while you guys are down there. I don't really know if y'all should still go. And he like said it in such a casual, normal way. And like, in my mind, it was that moment that I was like, okay, he's not proposing this trip, because if he was, then my dad wouldn't have said that. Yeah. He wouldn't have tried to like hint that I shouldn't go. So anyways, that was like context of my mindset going into this, that I didn't think it was happening.
Well, I'm a dirty little liar.
Yeah, you are.
And we woke up that morning, and honestly, like, I don't want to spend too long on the story, but we had a terrible morning.
It was so bad.
We woke up already super early, and it started out great because we were flying through Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like we got through there so early, but in my wife's brand new car, we ran over a giant chunk of concrete in the middle of the road. Like we couldn't see anything. It was late at night, and it was around a bend, and ran over that thing and scratched up a bunch of the bottom of her car.
Yeah, we had to pull over, make sure nothing was messed up.
You were emotional.
I was crying. I was like, I literally got the car like
first car you ever bought
3 months before with my own money. It was a brand new 2022 Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, and then we even like tried to backtrack to find it and find the spot.
Yeah, because I wanted to take a picture for insurance.
Yeah, and when we finally found the spot, Atlanta roads are hard to navigate.
Yeah, like there's no easy way to turn around.
When we finally found the spot, it had just been roped off. Like just the trucks were already out there doing stuff.
The orange lights.
But anyway, we made the decision to keep it rolling because I was like, you want to go back? You're like, no, let's just keep going. And so we kept going.
Well, and we decided that we would go straight to a Toyota dealership when we got down there. Because there was one in Orlando. So like we were like, we're not going to go to the park right away. We'll go there.
Yeah.
So it'll be open by the time we get there.
So we woke up at 2 because we wanted to get there right in the morning. But what essentially ended up happening was we got there at like 1 in the afternoon.
The park, yeah.
Yeah. But we're in the park having a good time, finally. And I was going to propose the next day when my mom was able to take a video of the proposal. But it started to rain a little bit, and we got the news that the park wasn't just going to be closing for like a day or 2. It was going to close potentially the whole trip we were there because of Hurricane Ian.
Yeah.
And I was like, frick, if I'm going to do this, it needs to be tonight. And so I remember we went back to the Toyota dealership because they called us and said that the vehicle was ready for pickup. And when we were there, the guy that was helping us out was like, and keep in mind, I want to get back to the park as quick as possible so I can propose before it closes. And the guy that was running us through everything, like you walked away for a second and I was like, hey buddy, can you hurry up? I'm trying to propose. And he goes, oh shoot. Okay. I got you. So we got out of there quick. We stopped by the hotel on the way back because I was on the way to the park. Cause I said, hey, I want to grab all my cash. I want to grab my cash so I can buy stuff before the park closes for the rest of the trip.
And I was like, at this point, I was so out of it, depressed, convinced that this trip was ruined, that I was like running on 50% consciousness from here until the moment that he proposed. So that is the only excuse that I have.
We get to the park, get to the parking deck, and we start like sprinting to get to Diagon Alley because I had said this whole time I wanted to go on a wand tour. For those who don't know, at Universal, if you get one of the interactive wands, you can go to Wizarding World and like they have spots that you can wave your wand. It has a sensor in it and there's a little camera that picks up on it. And the park interacts with you and does these magical spells, stuff like a night suit falling apart and coming back together. Cool stuff. But I told her, I was like, I really want to. Yeah, they have a new one. The dragon will spit fire, which if you know, the dragon does that anyway.
Well, I knew that too, but you were like, you could make it do it like on command.
And so we get to the park. We're sprinting through the parking deck. Some kid chases after us, he's like, because while we're running, he sees us and we don't even know this kid. He's like, I guess we're running. And he chases after us too. And
he eats it.
He face plants right there.
And you were like, we got to keep going.
Keep going, baby. We don't got the time. We keep it moving. We get to the, this is a race against the clock because the place closes in less than an hour. And who knows how long it takes to get through security and all that and get back to and Diagon Alley is in the very back of this particular park there. We get to the metal detectors. And with the metal detectors, there's a bunch of different stations. And I was like, because I had the ring on me, I thought it would beep. I was like, all right, baby, you go to that one over there. I'll go to this one over here because they both had no lights. And you were like, cool. And you ran your way. I ran my way. I don't know what happened with you, but when I got to mine, it beeped. And they were like, hey, you got anything in your pockets? And I was like, I got an engagement ring. And they're like, what? And I was like, I got an engagement ring. And they were like, oh, shoot. Okay, yeah, go through. Which, looking back,
that was so dumb.
So dumb on their part. They didn't even ask to see it because it's like, my guys, what if I'm lying and I have something else?
I mean, to be fair, like
maybe they saw it in the detectors or something.
Maybe, and also there was like nobody in the park. Like there was nobody there because
if a tragedy happens, there's nobody. Anyway, we get to sprinting. We're literally running through rain to get to the back of the park because, again, a hurricane is coming. And we get to we finally get to Diagon Alley. I remember like slowing down for bits of we stayed running the whole time, but sometimes we'd slow to a jog because you have asthma.
Yeah.
And you're like,
well, and it's really bad. It's only really an issue when it's humid outside. So like it being rainy, it was not good.
So anyway, we get to sprinting. We get to finally make it back to Diagon Alley. And I want to get a picture of this. And I don't know, like my mom isn't there. And I was like, I want to get this recorded. And there was this Spanish couple who didn't speak a lick of English, but they you knew I wanted a photo because again, you just thought it was for the spell and you knew how to say, can you take a picture in Spanish? So you gave this lady your phone and I told you the incantation and I forget now exactly what it was.
It was a Latin phrase.
Yeah, all Harry Potter spells are based in Latin. And I looked up the Latin words for it and essentially the incantation said, like when you translate it, ask me your question. And so, it's like you telling me to ask to marry you. And so I told you to point at the dragon and, wave your wand and say the incantation. And you're like, it's not working. And I said, scoot closer.
And I was like so out of it at this point. I genuinely believe that God protected you from my consciousness
of being able to figure out.
Yeah, it was so suspicious in hindsight. I was like, how did I not figure out?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I pushed you forward a little more because I was like, I need to get in camera a little more, get a little better shot. And I said, try it again. And that's when I got down on my knee, but your back is to me. And you say, I don't think it's working, or I don't think it worked. And I said, I think it did. And you turned around.
Well, I turned around because I heard people around us gasp. And as soon as I heard that, it all clicked together and I knew.
Did you think before you turned around? Oh, okay, cool. So you turned around and you saw me on the knee. Yeah. And I had the ring out, that fat rock you got on your hand.
And the couple with the phone they like swiped over to video
Yes.
as soon as they saw him get on his knee. 'cause-
She was a pro.
Yeah, she figured out what was going
Yeah,
on.
she,
so.
as soon as I got on my knee, she flipped your camera, so a stranger's camera, just flipped it to video, and she like got in there. I wish I
Yeah.
could like show people, but
You could
she
post
was-
the video.
yeah, she got all in there, like different angles and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really funny when we go back, you can look at the video, and I've have still shots of a bunch of people's faces
Oh,
of like,
bystanders.
yeah, all these bystanders of like open mouth, shocked expressions. Yeah, I'll probably post that for this episode. People, if you guys want to see that, you can go on to theretoldpodcast@gmail.com. But yeah, so that was the proposal. And what was also really cool was, we sat down on one of the steps in Diagon Alley, and the couple came over to us, and the man, he showed me his phone, and he had Google Translate pulled up, and he had typed out,
hope you have a happy
yeah,
marriage.
wish you long and happy life. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. And then we just had a wonderful rest of our night. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
the story of how we got engaged.
Uh-huh.
Yay.
Oh, and my parents, obviously. And your parents.
Yeah, they
surprised us
ended
that
up
night,
they ended up
so.
being there that night. They
It's
couldn't have
good.
made it for the photos.
Proposal, yeah.
But yeah, so we love Universal, obviously.
Yep.
We'll talk some about that when we cover these 2 chapters. But another thing I wanted to say, because I'm not doing like a normal intro. Normally I do a big old intro for each episode, but I want them to hear the brand new theme song when it comes in. So if you want to reach out or anything like that, you can message us at theretoldpodcast@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. It's probably a better spot I could have put that, but I wanted to get it in earlier. But anyway, moving on now. So that's our fun story, our wonderful love. And we're going to get to Quizzitch. And so a little bit of a different situation with Quizzitch. I don't want to Mike was like clipping a bunch. A little bit of a different situation with Quizzitch. I don't want to mess up what we did. So as I said before, we've already recorded this episode, and listeners, Bailey trashed me. Like, I thought I had to go easy on her because she hadn't really read the books, but she's a genius and an English teacher, and things stay locked in that brain. So she just has to read it one time, and whammo, it's in there. And so the final score last time from the first episode, even though I proved that I am the world's best Harry Potter fan when it comes to book 1, I'm off to a bad start on book 2. And we ended the episode, it was 1-0. So, but just so listeners can hear the questions, give me your first question.
So
See if I get it right this time.
Yeah, it was for chapter 1. What time will dinner be announced during the party with the Masons?
8:15?
Yeah, that was the right answer.
That
but
was,
that's not
yeah. I
what
got
you
it.
said.
I got it wrong at the time. I think I
Yeah.
said 8:30.
Yeah.
And then your first question was, what color are Dobby's eyes?
They're green.
They're green.
That was an easy one. That was I got that
What
one right.
what was my second question?
Your second question for chapter 2?
Mm-hmm.
It was the one about the joke, the Japanese golfer joke. And I thought it was the American golfer joke because
No. That was, I asked you that question.
Sorry. I thought that's what you meant.
No. So my second question for you was, what joke does Harry ruin? And it was the Japanese golfer joke. But what was
Yeah.
your second question?
My second question was,
Do you remember?
it was either, okay, tell me if it sounds familiar to you because I actually don't remember.
It was the one about the steps, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, how many steps does Harry jump down in one go to chase Dobby?
Still don't know. Like, I even thought to look it up. What was it, 8?
6.
Frick.
It's okay.
So I got off to a 0 start, and she got 1 right because you didn't get the, you said American.
Well, because there was the American plumbers story that was told at dinner later, and my brain combined them.
Well, but I did want to, just to add a little bit of fun, come up with 2. Each of us comes up with 1 more question just to, test our knowledge. It doesn't affect the score at all. This is just for funsies. And then I'll ask the audience, all the listeners, their Quizzitch question for the week. So you ask me your question first.
Over chapter 1 or 2 or either?
It's just 1 question, so you can pick.
Right. Okay. I'm an English teacher, so what is Uncle Vernon compared to in a simile while he is yelling at Harry? This is chapter 1.
I swear I'm a big old Harry Potter fan. I know oftentimes they say a walrus. It's not a walrus though, is it?
Mm-mm.
A boar?
No.
What is it?
A winded rhinoceros.
I do. I even see the word in my head. Frick. Okay.
That's okay.
Your question
Oh boy.
was, what does Harry feed Hedwig? At the end of chapter 2, what does Harry feed Hedwig?
Well, they're locked up together and they're given almost no food.
Mhm.
So it would have been like remnants of his own meal.
Which was?
Oh, what was it? The thing that's coming to my mind, I don't think it's right, but it was like finger food, like random back of the refrigerator food. I'm just gonna guess bread, like stale bread.
I thought you were about to pull it out.
No?
I don't know why I don't want you to succeed. I'm over here. I'm a great husband. Over here like, get it wrong. No, soggy vegetables.
Soggy vegetables.
Because
Yeah,
I think you had vegetable soup.
Okay, yeah, I was remembering soup, but anyway.
Do you did write another question though?
I have many questions.
Give me one more, just one more,
Okay.
and then I'll give the audience their question for the week.
Okay.
I gotta try to redeem myself somewhat.
I know. I'll give you one that might be easier. What does Dobby plan to do as self-punishment for coming to see Harry?
Iron his ears, his hands, stick his ears in the oven.
Stick his ears in the oven door. I was like...
He does them all. Later in the movie, I think of that scene in the movie where he's like, Dobby had to iron his hands, sir. He wiggles his fingies. Okay, there you have it, everybody. I'm such a big fan of book 2. I do hate all the flack that book and movie 2 get. This is probably the least loved book. This is a great sell for this season. But I mean, it's still, people will often say still great, but if I were to rank it, it'd be my last. That's what people usually say. But I really enjoy this book. It introduces a whole lot. I mean, it introduces the whole conflict.
I think it solidifies
series.
I think it solidifies the vibe.
The vibe.
Yeah.
Love the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But audience, your Quizzitch question for the week is, what time do the Dursleys welcome the Masons? What time do they welcome them at their home? So that's your question for the week. Again, if you want to answer that, you can write into the retoldpodcast@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram at the Retold Podcast. Anyway, let's get to it now. Let's get to the chapters. And these are two very short chapters. We'll probably breeze through these. 2 very short chapters. We'll probably breeze through these suckers. Bailey has the one of the fancy art books. Which one is this? Is this Mina Lima? Yeah, the new illustrated design
It's
of Mina
squeaking.
Lima.
It has a squeaky cover. I'm sorry.
Stop! Don't do it next to the mic. But it's a very pretty book, though. Never mind. Chapter 1, The Worst Birthday. Opening thoughts. I'm so glad to be back. Yippee-ki-yay, back in the saddle. Look at me go, John Wayne on him.
Ew. I didn't like that.
I saw some joke about Chuck Norris that I'm trying to remember, but I can't. Anyway, chapter 1, The Worst Birthday. We don't start off on a happy note. That dumb, ugly, noisy, no good owl Hedwig wakes Vernon up for the third time this week, and it was a running joke through through season 1 of how much I love Vernon. I don't actually love him.
You just thought he was relatable
yeah,
sometimes.
He's a funny character. But Vernon, reasonably, my notes are funny.
I love her adverbs. Anytime I hear some stupid writing advice of adverbs just should be replaced by better verbs, I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. I will take all of the adverbs and all of the modifiers and I will hold them forever in my heart.
Vernon reasonably states, if this keeps happening, then that bird's got to go. Harry says, she's a peacock. You got to let her fly. I forget what movie that's from. But Vernon's not stupid. All right. Well, hold on. Got to wiggle the stuff. Is it still recording? Still recording. But Vernon's not stupid. Why did I write? Oh, he said, do I look stupid? Snarled Uncle Vernon, a bit of fried egg dangling from his bushy mustache. I know what'll happen if I let that owl out. Harry loses his argument with Uncle Vernon because he can't talk over the noise of Dudley burping. Then we have the bacon incident. Dudley wants more bacon, asks Harry for the food, and we get one of my favorite Harry moments, like from the jump. After Dudley asks for the bacon, he says, "You've forgotten the magic word."
Dun, dun, dun.
And he basically says the M word, as Vernon calls it, which is funny because we do get an actual M word later in this book. But anyway, so everybody freaks the frick out over Harry saying magic. And they're like, "How dare you threaten Dudley?" All that stuff. Eventually, they settle down, and we get treated to some wonderful exposition. I asked this last time, you're writing a book, my love. A very good book, by the way.
Thank you.
And you're an English teacher. How would you rate this exposition?
Oh, which part of it?
I mean, just the part that's like, "Hey, we're back at welcome back to book 2 in this world."
Oh, yeah. I understand why it's there. I think that
especially in a children's book,
and then also it would have been like an amount of time between when someone read the first book and when this one came out. So I think that it's fine. It's the same sort of thing as like you watch a TV show and it's like last time on. It's not like purposeless.
Yeah. They do kind of get rid of those often now, though, of like shows don't often have recap episodes because shows are meant to binge.
And you can stream them and watch them at will now. Sorry.
That book's gonna drive me crazy.
But you can watch episodes of things whenever you want now. You're not at the mercy of like cable. So
but anyway, we get treated to some exposition. Harry is a wizard. He goes to magic school. It's a place called Hogwarts. He's there during the school year, but back at the Dursleys over summer break. I wrote the description of how he misses Hogwarts reminds me of how much I miss Universal, because he says he missed Hogwarts so much it was like having a constant stomach ache. And I was like, I get that, because even now it's been even longer. And I just missed that place. Want to go back soon. They got the new world, although the new world isn't necessarily Hogwarts or like.
Well, there's a section of it that's
they got the Ministry of Magic there. But I also want to see the other places too. Mario 3D World, or that's a video game. Mario World and How to Train Your Dragon. And I've heard I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah.
So we'll head back there eventually. So anyway, I also wrote down that we get a funny explanation for Quidditch because, he's saying all the different things about Hogwarts that he loves and misses. And he says, especially Quidditch, the most popular sport in the wizarding world, 6 tall goalposts, 4 flying balls, and 14 players on broomsticks. Like, it's just in parentheses right after Quidditch, as if that's an explanation for the game. It's like, you just described the equipment, my guy. We also learn the Dursleys, who hate magic and Harry, have locked all his stuff away. And he can't even write to his friends. They give us a description of the Dursleys. We learn about how Harry and his parents were attacked by Voldemort, as Jim Dale says it. And that's how he got his lightning bolt scar. And again, I made this joke last time, and I got to make it again. I came up, like, especially with the way it says it in the book of, like, that's how he ended up getting his lightning bolt scar. I was like, we should make one of those T-shirts. And, there's those T-shirts that say, like, oh, I went to Stone Mountain and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. I did this race and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. And, Harry could have one that says, my parents were killed by Voldemort and all I got was this lousy scar.
It's not true.
You got lots of love and potential, but spoilers. Anyway,
you're the one who took it that far.
Actually, it's mentioned at the end of book 1. I'm safe. Anyway, exposition dump ends with telling us Harry's life at the Dursley stinks and that today is his 12th birthday, but nobody has said anything. All of a sudden, Vernon is like, hey, big day, y'all. Real big day. And Harry goes, no freaking way. But he's not talking about Harry's birthday. He's talking about something infinitely more important. It's a dinner party with a potential business partner. So obviously that's more important. Vernon says, huddle up, y'all. Let's review the play. I point at you and you say what you're doing. Points at Petunia. She says she'll be in the lounge waiting to greet them. He's like, solid. Points at Dudley. He says, I'll be waiting to open the door, and ask them for their coats. And remember last time we were like,
May I take your hat, sir?
May I take your hat, sir? SpongeBob reference for anybody out there who doesn't get what we're talking about.
Oh.
That is basically saying Dudley is Patrick. Anyway, Harry, best line of the chapter, spoiler, he points at him and he says, I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending I'm not there, said Harry tonelessly. Where am I in my notes? And they all go over the plan a little more, rehearse some compliments for the guests. I did notice that Majorca was mentioned, and I was corrected because on one of my streams playing on Twitch, one of my viewers who's like a good friend at this point now, and he goes, hey, and he's from Scotland. He goes, hey, it's Majorca, not Majorca. Because I said Majorca the first time, and I was like, I didn't know. I didn't see no pronunciation guide there. But yeah,
boy.
I got it wrong. America strikes again. It'll be Majorca once we're done with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Petunia. Oh, and it makes it seem like Petunia and Yvonne are still friends because she was mentioned as going to Majorca. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Harry goes outside. It's a nice sunny day, and in a very sad moment, he sings happy birthday to himself. If you listen to the audiobook, it's even sadder because he's just happy birthday to me. No, there ain't no ring in it. You got a beautiful voice, but Harry's just to me. To me. It's sunny here, but it's raining somewhere vibes. We learn that Harry's friends, Ron and Hermione, haven't even been writing to him all summer. He tried to make himself feel better by messing with Dudley, but that wasn't even fun anymore. And now Harry is super bummed because even though he can't write to them, his friends could have written to him, but they hadn't. And they'd forgotten his birthday. I'm not going to ask you this question this time, but last time I was like, do you ever test people with your birthday?
No.
Yeah, because your reaction was like, the frick is wrong with you?
I'm not a psychopath.
Again, I don't do it anymore, but like
That's not even true. That's not even
I do it as okay. Let me explain before you just say things. No, I do it as a joke with my twins because I'm a twin, and I have a joke to mess with people of like where I'll say, "Hey, this Tuesday is my twin sister's birthday," and I like to see if people get what I'm saying. Because it's literally 50-50 on whether people are like, oh, well, tell her I said happy birthday. Or whether they go, wait a minute. That means it's your birthday too.
Yep.
So that's for fun. But I definitely was one of those like awful people. Like in middle school, I was like, let's see if any of my friends remember my birthday. Then I'll know who really cares.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, that's toxic. Don't do that, people. Anyway, what the heck is that? Two big old eyes were staring at him from the bush. And before Harry can check it out, Dudley appears. And we get some sassy Harry, and he's insulting Dudley like from the rip. And I don't know why he's sassing Dudley because Dudley's just asking him, checking in on him, saying happy birthday.
Can I talk about that being my favorite part?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah. So I listed this as my favorite part for this chapter because I also thought that Dudley wasn't approaching Harry with evil intentions here. I thought that he just doesn't know how to actually be nice.
Doesn't know how to people.
So he doesn't know that he's like coming off just as like sneeringly as he always does. But I felt like he was actually expressing some concern, and he's like, what, do you not have any friends? Like no one is telling you happy birthday? Like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute. I
am of the opinion that he was teasing Harry still, but I can see how you would interpret it that way, especially given later books too.
Yeah.
So anyway, Duds is like, why were you looking at that bush? And Harry seizes his chance, and we get an uber menacing Harry moment where he's like, jiggery pokery, hocus pocus, squiggly wiggly, piggly wiggly.
That was another question that I had prepared. I was going to ask you.
And I got it wrong because
yeah.
you did ask me last time of like, do you want just a third question? I was like, no. Okay, yeah, what is it? I got it wrong anyway. But yeah, so Harry pretends to do a spell, and I like this line where it says, Harry paid dearly for his moment of fun. Petunia makes Harry go full Cinderella, Cinderella, and he's got to do a bunch of cleaning. When he finishes spreading manure on the flower beds, Petunia calls him in. He saves, what is it? He sees the awesome meal prepared for everyone else, but all he gets to eat is 2 slices of bread and a lump of cheese. He's sent to his room and is about to lay down in bed like you do at the end of a long day. But Bailey, before he can do so, there's already someone in his bed. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my goodness. I think that's why I thought that it was bread, because I remember that what he got in this chapter was 2 slices of cheese and bread. Wow.
See, Barry, this is why I was wrong.
It was there somewhere. I
hate when you do that.
Well, listen, there's always, I'm not saying that there's always a justification. There's always a reason.
Of course. Anyway, let me take a sip of my water.
Yeah.
This podcast powered by Mio. They didn't sponsor it. I'm just drinking it. All right. So that's the end of chapter 1 of the Sorcerer's Stone. Chamber of Secrets. And Bailey, what were some of your favorite lines? Let's bounce back and forth. Did you have any?
Oh gosh. Well, my favorite part was that one. I don't know if I had found a favorite line.
Okay, well then I'll say a few.
Yeah.
One of mine was, I've read some of them already, but I'll be in my bedroom making no noise and pretending I'm not there. That's one of them from Harry. I also liked Harry couldn't feel too excited whenever they said that they were shopping for a vacation home in Majorca. Harry couldn't feel too excited about this. He didn't think the Dursleys would like him any better in Majorca than they did on Privet Drive.
Yeah.
I just thought that was clever.
I remember one that I liked.
Yeah.
It was when they were talking about like the business people coming over.
Mm-hmm.
And Dudley was going to be like, I wrote an essay about you. And it's like the silliest thing ever. It's like this random business guy who's trying to buy drills. He's like, you're my hero.
Oh, here it is right here. You want to read that?
Oh yeah. How about we had to write an essay about our hero at school, Mr. Mason, and I wrote about you.
Oh.
Good use of italicizing there
Italics.
too. Yeah.
And then my last one was the like jiggery piggery wiggity burger hocus pocus squiggly wiggly one. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But that's it for favorite lines. So moving on now to our transfigurations. I didn't even at the top of the podcast explain the different sections, but that's okay. Onto our transfiguration section. So this is differences that the movies made from the books. And so a lot of it, as always, is just omissions. Certain things are not included. And so in the whole first half of this chapter is really omitted. In the movie, it picks up with the Dursleys about to receive the Masons, whereas this one and so it's like nighttime. The book picks up, as we've just read, at the beginning of the day. Like it's morning time, because they were having brekkie and all that. So it picks up in the morning, and we miss a lot of that breakfast and the conversations there. They also only ask Harry what he'll do one time, because like they go back to him 3 different times in the book.
And the version that he actually says is because it's pretending I'm not there, and then it's pretending that I don't exist.
Yeah, what we did notice though, so that's the line in the book is he says, I'll be in my bedroom making no noise and pretending I'm not there. But in the movie, he says, I'll be in my bedroom making no noise and pretending I don't exist. However, like if you like jump forward a few paragraphs, the line is said, no cards, no presents, and he would be spending the evening pretending not to exist. Yeah. So I do like that change in the movie because that's a funnier way to say it. We also, there's no like freak out moments because there's 2 times where Harry like freaks out Dudley with magical stuff or pseudo magical stuff, faux magical.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not in the movie at all. And also we don't get any big old Dobby eyes in the bushes. That does not happen either. So anyway, that's all our transfiguration section. Our final section is the golden snitch section. And so there is the golden snitch section again is just little lore tidbits, behind the scenes things, things the average fan might not have picked up or the casual fan might not have picked up on. And so I don't have many for this chapter. I wrote down like an extra one from last time, but the first one is the Majorca callback because it's mentioned in the early chapters of book 1. So they make a reference to Majorca again. I guess the Dursleys really want to go. It's popular and little whinging for people to go to Majorca. And then the other one that I made note of, I read this somewhere, so I'm not entirely sure if this is true because I didn't hear it directly from the horse's mouth, as it were. But the whole them rehearsing their compliments was like a commentary from J.K. Rowling on like making fun of posh British culture and like that, like being fake in front of people and
Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, not really a whole lot of golden snitches for this chapter. It's a very short one. These first 2 are like the shortest in the whole book, so easy to fly through. But that's all I got for chapter 1. Did you have anything else you wanted to say for chapter 1 before we move on?
Not for me.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's move on to chapter 2, Dobby's Warning. So some of our opening thoughts. I love the mystery. I love, we get introduced to a brand new magical creature, and it's again from the jump setting up, I guess, the big mystery of this book, of what are the stakes and what do we need to be on the lookout for, and why is it that Harry can't go to Hogwarts? What's going on there? Just some of mine. Did you have any before we start?
Nope.
All righty. So we left off. Something was in Harry's bed, and it is definitely not human. Maybe it's Koga, our dog. No, it's not. Some tiny little guy with big old ears and eyes and nose, and
Koga's not a tiny little guy.
No, he's a big old boy.
Yeah.
He's like 84 pounds now, something like that. But this little guy's wearing a pillowcase for clothing. It is sundress season after all, so it makes sense. It's summer over there, July 31st. Harry asks who the creature is, and his name is Dobby. Dobby the house elf, sir. Bailey, how do you feel about Dobby? Dobby.
How do I feel about Dobby? So far, like at this point in the story, he's just annoying. But he's cool as like a
plot device.
Yeah, and like he says some things that are interesting, and I like the silliness of his speech too. Yeah.
Harry says, "Hey, don't want to be rude, but you should go." And it made me think of like one of my goodbyes.
Yeah.
Because I'm in our friend group, I'm kind of like famous for ending the party. Like when it's time, I'm always like the first one to go. And I usually leave off with like my moniker is, our slogan is, guys, this is great. I had a good time. You had a good time. We simply must do this again sometime. Anyway, and then roll out.
Yep.
My favorite moment was when we had our book club over, and it was getting late. I wanted to go to bed, had to get up early for work, and we're standing in the kitchen. A bunch of our friends are we can see them through I'm not going to explain the setup of the house. We're just looking at a bunch of our friends, and I say, guys, you know who you look like? You look like my really good friends who I love so much, but I want them to leave right now. And one of our friends, Jonathan, who's been on this podcast before, and he's going to be on again for season 2, he goes, "Well, it's a good thing we just look like them." That was a solid response. Anyway, Harry said, Dobbs has something important to say, though, so he ain't leaving. Harry says, "All right, why don't you sit down then?" And Dobby freaks the heck out about that because Dobby has never been asked to sit down by a wizard as an equal. Harry pulls the older sibling comforting the younger one thing, makes the whole like, don't tell mom, don't tell mom. Did Taylor ever do that with you? Like,
No.
Really? You never had a moment where he like accidentally hurt you or upset you and was like,
it was every man for himself. He knew he had no shot to convince me not to tell.
Well, I had a very large older brother, and I often got injured at his hands. It was very much, okay, don't tell mom, don't tell mom. That's Harry and Dobby right now. But he only makes things worse because Dobby like has to punish himself even more because Harry's being so nice. Harry's worried all the noise will alert the Dursleys, but more importantly, it wakes up Hedwig. Anyway, Dobby just had to punish himself because he almost talked ill of his family. And he explains to Harry how there's slavery in the wizarding world, and all house elves serve a family forever. And so I did want to talk just for a second. Again, try not to breeze too quickly through these chapters, but I did want to talk just for a second on like the house elf slavery thing, because it is often talked about in the Harry Potter fandom. You know, you see it on Reddit or different Potter pods, whatever. People just saying that there is a portion of the community who's like, yeah, the house elves are awful. Like the system shouldn't be there. They should not have slaves in this world. It's very problematic. And I guess the thing I would want to say about that is, if that's how you feel, like I can understand why a person might feel that way. And so I would not critique somebody for having the view that they hate this and that it's like triggering in some ways. I would not critique them. But, you know, and the theme of this podcast and the theme of how I try to perceive many of these things is like, this is a fantasy world, and I'm trying to assume like the most wholesome outcome, and it's just a for fun thing. So I try not to take it too seriously and try to have fun with it. Again, I'm not saying you have to, or that I'm upset with you if you disagree with that, but that is like sort of my stance on it. It doesn't bother me. I think it's a cool quirk in this world.
Yeah, I guess like you can always just say, you know, house elves aren't real. Like,
they're not real, but they might represent something. You know, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think so. I think that that's where you have the benefit of the doubt kind of thing.
That's like, true. It doesn't like just because it's written down doesn't mean it needs to represent.
It's not commentary on anything in real life. Like, it's just this world.
And yeah, that's what I like to assume about this, is that the house elf enslavement is not a one-to-one connection to anything. It's just a fantastical inclusion. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Back to the podcast. Dobby basically says that he's stuck with his crappy wizard family. He cries some more over Harry's politeness. I like this part where Harry thinks about Hermione, because it's a really cool moment where Harry, who was feeling distinctly hot in the face, said, whatever you've heard about my greatness is a load of rubbish. I'm not even top of my year at Hogwarts. That's Hermione. And then it cuts off. But he stopped quickly because thinking about Hermione was painful. And I love that line because it really shows that Hermione is like just as important to Harry as Ron is. You know, we often hear about how great their friendship is, but this is a really cool moment of Harry being like,
Hermione is the first one to kind of like
trigger,
have that. Yeah. And because the same thing happens with Ron a second later. But
so anyway, Dobby glazes Harry up some more. Harry drops a Voldy bomb, and Dobby is both horrified and impressed. He's like, oh, don't say that, but also cool. After a bit more discussion, Dobby tells Harry that he must not go back to Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. I'm going to stop that. Harry's line, the heck are you talking about? Oh, Harry's like, the heck are you talking about? I love that place. It's like us with Universal when somebody says, you guys have been there so much. Don't you want to go other places? It's like, why not both?
Right.
I'm doing both. Dobby says that there is a plot to make most terrible things happen at Hogwarts. And he says that he's known about this for months. So you're just now saying something, my guy? That's crazy. Harry tries to get Dobbs to say who's responsible, but Dobbs almost freaks out again. And Harry's like, okay, chill. Just tell me, is you-know-who responsible? And Dobby says not he who must not be named, but it is noted that something's going on with that. Like Dobby's trying to give Harry a hint, but Harry shrugs off any notion of that because he's like, well, no big deal then if there's no you-know-who involved. Besides, we got Daddy Dumbledore on our side, so nobody can touch us. And Dobbs like, oh yeah? Well, what about, and then starts hitting himself with the desk lamp before he says any more. Harry hears Vernon coming up the stairs at this point and shoves Dobby in the closet. Vernon's like, bro, the heck you doing? You just ruined my best racist joke.
Yeah.
It is funny, though, because he doesn't even wait for a response from Harry. He just leaves. Harry lets Dobby out of the closet and says, I got to go to Hogwarts. It's the only place I got friends. And Dobby says, some friends, they don't even write you. And I like the slyly note about it, you know, where he says like some friend, where is it?
It's right here. friends who don't even write to Harry Potter, said Dobby slyly.
He's just being all mischievous. There is an observant Harry moment. So again, people often comment on like, wow, it takes Harry forever to pick up on things. I disagree. I mean, I think it's just like everybody, sometimes hit or miss. But
It's like he's 12.
That's a
How
good-
many things did you pick up when you were 12? You couldn't even pick up your room.
Oh, got him. But Harry's like, wait a minute. How did you know they haven't been writing to me? And honestly, Dobby could have lied here, because he just as soon as Harry calls him out on it, he folds. Dobby
Yeah.
shuffled his feet. Ooh, telltale sign. Harry Potter mustn't be angry with Dobby. Dobby did it for the best. And have you been stopping my letters? And we find
And it's
out
also like, why would he keep them on him?
that's because he wants to use them as the bargaining chip.
Oh.
Where he's like, I'll give them to you if you don't go back to Hogwarts. And Harry's like, nah, I'm going back to Hogwarts. I do like when he flashes the letters at Harry. There's a note about each person's handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Harry could make out Hermione's neat handwriting, Ron's untidy scrawl, and even a scribble that looked as though it was from the Hogwarts gamekeeper, Hagrid.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me think how you and all the students at youth group make fun of my handwriting.
It's awful. You know exactly what those letters should look like.
But my hand can't do it.
That's not true. That is not true.
It's funny, like when I write my one that I pick up on the most is when I write TH together, I just connect them. Like, so it looks like
but not in a cursive way.
It looks like a capital H with a hump on it because I just write TH.
Yeah.
Like the pen, I don't pick up the pen really for that one. But no, there was one time you guys.
Handwriting.
What did you guys do?
We made you. So we have this big whiteboard. We gave you an expo marker, and we were like, okay, write out every letter of the alphabet, and he did. And then we made a tier list, S to F tier, of how awful they were. So like S tier being the most awful. And like it was like half of your letters were S tier.
But there were some letters that you were like, that's actually, I think my B. You guys were like, that's a good B.
No, you're like S.
My S? Heck yeah.
Yeah, which is literally a squiggly line.
Sin. That's a movie reference.
Yeah.
People. Anyway, so handwriting, I relate to Hagrid. So they go downstairs, and we get the worst scene in the movie for me to watch. It's different though, so we'll get to that in Transfiguration. Like they run down the stairs. They're playing keep away with the letters. I like Dobby gives Harry a tragic look.
Yeah, I love that.
Because
that's one of my favorite lines.
He's like, say you won't do it.
Yeah.
I can't. He just, I hate to do this to you, bud. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And Dobby takes off the, what is the big old pudding and throws it on the floor. And I guess pudding is just cake.
I mean, there's different kinds. I mean, there's pudding cake. Like,
yeah, it's some British dessert. British listeners, right in. And
it looks like in the illustration.
I know. It's so pretty. Good book. Mina Lima, book 2 edition. So he throws it on the ground and then he poofs on out of there. Dobby just boof, porking. So he gets out of there. And everybody freaks out for a second. But to Vernon's credit, he almost smooths things over. It says that things got like pretty settled down. He's like, hey, that's just my crazy nephew. Don't worry about him. Let's get back to dinner. And it kind of works until an owl comes in and scares the frick out of Mrs. Mason.
That was so unfortunate.
Yeah, sprints on out of there.
Oh, I have a terrible phobia of birds.
Yeah, the Mr. Mason is like, did you know that she was deathly afraid of birds? And no, he didn't, but very unfortunate. But the letter is dropped in there, and Vernon says, like, hey, you freaking read the letter, which is different because in book 1,
he was like playing keep away.
Yeah, but now this time he's like, I guess cat's already out of the bag. So he's like, why don't you read it? Tell me what it says. And in the letter, it basically says that magic's been done in this house. Harry, you naughty boy, you should know, don't do magic while you're not at school. And Vernon is hype about this because he's like, you forgot to tell us that you can't do magic. we're going to be even worse people to you
Yeah.
now. And so again, unlike last book, he's actually happy to get these letters. And he tells Harry he's locking him up and he's never letting him out again. So they even put bars on his freaking window so he can't let his bird out. It says that they put a cat flap on his bedroom door. Like they locked him in there. They would give him meals 3 times a day through the cat flap, and they let him out to use the bathroom morning and evening. I would not survive.
No, you wouldn't.
I pee like at least 3 times when we go see a movie in theaters.
It's so annoying.
Sometimes more. My dad and I just recently saw Mission Impossible, the new one, and knowing my dad, it was a freaking 8:15 showing, like in the morning, 8:15 a.m. So there was hardly anybody in that theater, and we still sat near the edge. And I was like, I used the bathroom probably 4 times during that one because I was like, I don't have to walk past people. But anyway, we get a short bit about him in his room being hungry and being given cold veggie soup. He does give some to Hedwig, and he tells Hedwig, hey, have a positive attitude. We'll make it through. He goes to sleep, wondering if Hogwarts would send someone to get him. And he dreams that he's a zoo animal. And it's a very meta dream, very similar to how he's really treated, because people are just looking in, staring at him behind the bars. In his dream, Dudley is rattling the cage bars, but the cage bars on his window are actually rattling, and he wakes up, and who's outside? It's his best friend, Ron Weasley. You must be a Weasley. And that's the end of chapter 2. Yay! We did it. All right, Bailey, what are some of your favorite lines from chapter 2?
I liked the one where Dobby said, Harry Potter asks if he can help Dobby. Dobby has heard of your greatness, sir, but of your goodness, Dobby never knew.
Oh,
I like that.
Yeah, and the whole, I wrote that. I kind of cheated. I made that part of my favorite line, but I also included it with the part that I said earlier about Harry getting upset.
Well,
about Hermione.
completely kind of unrelated, but it just gives me Aslan vibes from Narnia.
Oh yeah,
it's I knew of your greatness, but not of your goodness. Of the distinction between those things.
I only have one other favorite line, and it's, and laughing like a maniac. Just talking about Uncle Vernon, and laughing like a maniac, he dragged Harry back upstairs. Uncle Vernon was as bad as his word, because usually the expression is as good as your word. And so I just thought it was a cool turn of phrase for as bad as your word. Did you have any other favorite lines?
That was it.
That's all we got for favorite lines. Again, these are short chapters, people. We don't have too many things. But moving on to our transfiguration section, which is, again, differences from book to movie. First one that I have a few here, so a lot more from last chapter. Uncle Vernon in the movie puts the bars on Harry's window, whereas in the book he hires somebody else to do it. So and you'll never see your friends again. You never go to that freaky school ever. Dobby doesn't crack when he disappears. And so in the books, it's very common when somebody disapparates that there's a loud crack. So much so that there's even one book where Harry thinks, was that a car backfire or somebody apparating? But Dobby, in the movie, he just disappears with a little, he does snap his fingers, but that's about as all noise you get. In the movie, Dobby drops the cake on Mrs. Mason's head. Yeah. Instead of him just throwing it off of the fridge. And this is why, this is one of the worst scenes in all of Harry Potter to me, because I can't handle awkward embarrassment humor. Can't do it. If I'm not going to watch movie 2, this is why. Simply for this scene. Anytime I do watch it, I'm always I might even skip this scene even though it's 10 seconds. Like a man. Yeah. So that is one of my least favorite moments, but yeah, that is a difference. You also get something that not a lot of people catch. Mr. Mason actually, when the cake drops on her, he puts his finger through it and licks it.
So concerned.
Yeah. And there's also no letter from the ministry in the movie.
And she doesn't have the whole owl freak out.
So that doesn't happen. And there's yeah, you're right. No bird scene in the movie. And there's also no zoo dream. So really just a lot of transfigurations, a lot of omissions in this transfiguration section. And that's about it for the transfiguration section. So moving on to our golden snitches, our little lore tidbits, our grabs and behind the scenes stuff. I thought about including the Japanese golfer joke because you can Google it and find like possibly what it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I figured let's not include racist jokes on the podcast.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't assume that it was necessarily going to be racist, but I guess that's naive of me.
It's like the title gives half of it away, and Uncle Vernon being who he is the other half.
That's true.
Sorry, I had to take a sip of my drink. Anyway, the other one is house elves. So I got over here. I started pulling this up for book 2, going to the Harry Potter wiki to read some of these things, but things that I picked up on. So house elves, they're mentioned for the first time in this book. So a house elf was a magical being which was immensely devoted and loyal to the one designated as their master. House elves served wizards and witches and were usually found under the employment of old wizarding families, taking residence in elaborate establishments like mansions. I'm having a hard time reading. Mm-hmm. And must do everything that their masters commanded unless they were freed. A house elf could only be freed when their master presents them with clothes. House elves had their own brand of wandless magic, which, despite their small physical size and lack of wand, was very powerful. House elves also presumably made elf-made wine because it's called elf-made wine. So they're also probably 3 feet tall, or probably they are 3 feet tall when they are adults. That's really all that it has here. But so like I said, I looked this up on the wiki, and they're also under the being classification in the Ministry of Magic. So that's because there's what are the different classifications? I click on it right here. Different classifications of beasts. You got B. You know what? I'll figure it out. It's in another episode. You guys heard me say it. There's like a being, a human-like one. I can't even remember anything. Anyway, but moving on from that, there is also something I thought was interesting as I was looking at all this stuff on the wiki, is that it said house elves are related to Yumbos. I was like, what the heck is a Yumbo? So you click on that. Yumbos were a kind of African house elf native to Senegal. They were spiteful creatures and tended to steal food from humans as revenge for crossing them. They also had intrinsic magical power and could vanish at will. And I was like, what? Like, I've never heard of a Yumbo. Yeah. It's not in any of the games. It says potentially they might have been seen in movie 4 in the film. They're mentioned on Pottermore and in Hogwarts Mystery, the online video or the mobile game. But I've never heard of a Yumbo. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I found it. The other classifications are beast and spirit. So beast, spirit, being are the 3 different classifications in the ministry. But anyway, and then the other thing I had for this one was we got a mention of Mafalda Hopkirk. Mm-hmm. And Mafalda Hopkirk was an assistant in the improper use of magical office at the Ministry of Magic. She had wispy. It describes her as a wispy witch with flyaway gray hair, small. She's very small and wears glasses. And we'll talk about her a little more in the restricted section, so that's why I'm not saying too much here. And then we have the traces mentioned. And so the traces, again, we'll talk about this more in the restricted section, but we get the first mention, or I guess inference of the trace, because the ministry was able to detect that Harry magic was used around him. And that's why they sent a letter. Uh-huh. But in this world, the trace was a charm which allowed the ministry to know of magic cast in the vicinity of wizards and witches who were under 17 years of age. When any magical activity was performed in the vicinity of the underage individual, the improper use of magic office within the Ministry of Magic was alerted to the spell that was used and to the location of the caster and the time it was cast. The charm allowed the ministry to track underage magic, which was banned under the Decree for Reasonable Restriction of Underage Sorcery. And the trace automatically broke upon a wizard or witch's 17th birthday. Bam, I didn't have any trouble reading that one. How about that? Flew through that. So anyway. yeah, that's really all I got for golden snitches. I did write down the Masons and I looked them up and all it said was what happens here. Like this is the only time they're mentioned. So that's all we got for golden snitches. And now we're going to be moving on to our restricted section, our chamber of secrets, as it were. For those who don't know, this is the part of the podcast where, we talk about spoiler related things. So if you're going through the book for the first time and you don't want to hear any of this, then get on out of here. This is just for the super cool people who know parcel tongue. You know what I'm saying? They a little, yeah, it's a guy. See, yeah. Some people knew what I was talking about earlier when I made that joke. But for everybody else who's getting up out of here, thank you for listening, for being back here for book 2, season 2. I'm excited for the rest of this. Hope you have a wonderful week. Next week, covering chapters 3 and 4. But to everybody else, let me lead you in to the restricted section now. All right. So things I wanted to talk about. The first one was, did you get Dobby's hint when Dobby was talking to Harry?
Well, when I first read it, no, because I was like thinking that him widening his big green eyes was like some specific hint. Like it's hardly like written in a foreshadowing sort of way that's like specific. Because like if you don't know what's going to happen later, it's like there's no way to like guess it from that. It only makes sense retroactively. So,
well, Dobby was basically doing what you thought I do when I am being dishonest, where he was giving a loophole, because he was saying, not he who must not be named, because if you don't know already, it is Voldemort who's behind all of this stuff going on, but it's like not as Voldemort. Yeah, because the Tom Riddle that's in the diary, like that is Tom Riddle before he became Voldemort. And so that is that's kind of the hint Dobby was trying to give him, was that, hey, it's like, it's a Horcrux, Harry. You know what that stuff is. It's, it's an old version of Tom Riddle from the past. The other thing I have in the restricted section, like I said, Mafalda Hopkirk, she is mentioned 2 more times throughout the series. She's the one who sends Harry his letter whenever he conjures up a Patronus in book 5. And is like, hey, we're gonna come break your wand and all that. You're expelled from school. And then she sends another one that's like, just kidding, you got a hearing. And then the other time we see her is we see her in person in book 7 and in movie 7 when Hermione impersonates her in the Ministry of Magic. Whenever they break into the ministry, she is the one that Hermione transforms into with Polyjuice Potion. But yeah, and so the final thing I have is talking about the trace. And so I wanted to talk about the trace because the trace is garbage. I think it's one of those things that should have been, like, again, children's book, it's okay. But with as intricate as this world is, as awesome as it is, this is one of those things that's like, I mean, maybe it's best it's not fully explained, because there does seem to be a lot of loopholes of like, and again, the trace being the incantation or whatever that's put onto students when they are children, and if magic is performed around them. But interestingly enough, it seems that the trace is really only on like people in non-wizarding families. Like, I don't know, it said that, or it said if magic was ever done in the home of, like, so this is why there's so many inconsistencies. If magic is ever done in the home of somebody who is underage, but it's a magical home. Yeah. They just assume that parents are like taking care of it and it's whatever. So it is kind of unfair when it happens in the home of a Muggleborn or somebody like Harry. It's, you're going to be expelled. You're in big trouble.
No discussion.
The other one is that, like my other thought about it was, this was interesting. One theory is that it is placed on students whenever they get on the Hogwarts Express. That's when the trait, like how do they put on, because what about, when kids are growing up, in book 1 even, we heard a lot about Harry performing magic accidentally as a kid and no letters were sent then. Right. So often like that.
Well, he wasn't enrolled yet. So.
And so that's the most popular theory, is that like either when you get on the Hogwarts Express or when you get to the school for the first time, it's placed on you there. There are some issues with that, like especially when it comes to the gaunts in book 6. However, I will say a lot of the issues that I have with the trace have been somewhat resolved, because when I Googled it on the Harry Potter wiki, dear listener, on the Harry Potter, we read Jane Eyre, and I freaking loved that book. And
Dear Rita.
the YouTube version, the lady's just, and dear Rita, I loved him so much. I don't want to say the other thing because I'm like, spoiler.
Yeah, true.
But
Great book. Can it be called a spoiler when it's been out for like 150 years?
Yes.
Read Jane Eyre. It's great.
But a lot of the issues I have with the trace, whenever I went on to the Harry Potter wiki, were kind of like somewhat explained. There's it talks about a bunch of the moments where there's like like issues with it and what possible theories are to explain how those could have been resolved. Like stuff about when the advanced guard comes to Harry's house in book 5 and all that stuff. So I'd encourage listeners to go check out that article, because it was actually kind of interesting to answer a lot of questions about the trace. The only other thing, though, I guess the biggest problem with the trace that still hasn't been resolved for me is that it will not catch magic being done by somebody on a broom. Like because if you're using a magical object, the trace will not go off. However, the broom is different to me because it's still you doing the magic. It is explained that
like a wand.
Yeah, that magic is going through.
It's a medium for magic. It's not.
That's so hot that you know that. Look at you, remembering Harry Potter lore. You're gonna get the good smooches later.
Please help me.
Edit that out.
Blink twice.
Never mind. So anyway, but yeah, so like if it was something like the car itself that's mentioned later, that's a magical thing that does magic on its own. It's been enchanted. But a broom is not like that because it's channeling your magic.
Like it wouldn't work if a non-magic user tried to use it.
Mm-hmm. Whereas the car would.
Right.
So I still have an issue with that. Anyway, but also children's book. Let's have fun with it. Although I guess I would consider them YA. Maybe not the first 2.
Yeah, I think it turns into that for sure.
Yeah, starting in book 3 probably. But anyway, that's everything. That's all I got. Did you have any restricted section talk? Any Chamber of Secrets?
I don't think so.
You're not a parcel tongue?
No.
You're not the air Slytherin?
No.
You don't know how to...
I'm a Ravenclaw. I eat snakes.
Oh, okay. Go off. Let them know.
But so do badgers.
Badger. I guess that makes everything better than Slytherin.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, everybody. I love you, Slytherins. That's all I got.
Okay.
I keep again, I do all my little voices, and I keep remembering. It's a bit between Bailey and I that, there's been plenty of moments where I have a bunch of these cute little voices that I do. I don't want to do any of them because I always get self-conscious when I explain this to people. But there was one moment in our relationship where I made a cute little voice talking about something, and you go, "Do you think I find you attractive when you do that?" And I just went, anyway, as I was saying.
It's so, you always also turn country, and it doesn't make sense to me. There's no reason to add a country accent. Just make your voice deeper if you're trying to think.
I remember one time you were like, well, why country? Why is that the strictest definition of masculinity that you could think of? And I was like, what else? I mean, maybe Scottish?
No, that's not. And then he just sounded like Shrek.
Donkey! Get out of my swamp.
That sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Get out of my swamp. Bailey, we got to go get the princess. I'm not going to do any more impressions. Okay. Anyway, that's been a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody. We enjoyed it. Yeah. Bailey, thank you for doing this. Love of my life, my bestest friend. I'm so happy you're hungry, so we're going to go get you some food. Maybe some, I don't know what, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening, everybody. I will see you next week for chapters 3 and 4. I think it's like, I forget the name of those chapters. What are the name of those chapters? The Burrow and At Flourishing Blots. And that will be with Kristen Weber, who one of my old coworkers, and she is a comedian. So excited to have her on. But anyway, that's all we got for today. Thank you for listening. If you want to hit me up, again, write into retoldpodcast@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at the Retold Podcast. Please rate and review the show if you can. That helps me out a lot. And goodbye.
Bye.
Click. Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold Podcast is produced by me. That's right. I made this.